Freem Family Brewers has opened up a second location in Milwaukee, just south of Portland, so you're now less than a half hour away from their 20-plus taps of award-winning beer and consistently delicious food. Plus, they're in an old firehouse where they turned the old fire pole into a fully functioning tap, which I think is really cool. And if beer isn't really your thing, well, they also have 3 bars with seasonal cocktails. Freem Milwaukee is open daily from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Head over to freembeer.com for a full menu. That's PFRIEM beer.com. Doer Jeans is opening a store right here in Portland later this month, and if you haven't heard of them yet, let me tell you, they make stylish, comfortable clothes that are designed for a full day of living, from commuting to work to hanging out after. They're pioneers of blending technical innovation with everyday clothing without it looking like athletic wear. And you can try them out for yourselves now, because CityCast Portland listeners get 15% off your first order. Just mention the code CCPDX for your in-store purchase, or you can go online at shopdoer.com/CCPDX. That's shopdoer.com/CCPDX for 15% off your first order. With cooler weather on the way, now is the perfect time to replace any old drafty windows. And this month you get 50% off all window styles at Window Nation. Plus, you could put 0 down, make 0 payments, and pay 0 interest for 2 whole years. They also use high-quality Milgard windows manufactured here in Portland that come with a lifetime warranty. Schedule a fast free estimate now with Window Nation at windownation.com. That's windownation.com. License number OR2499065. Today on CityCast Portland, we're talking about why city leaders are issuing a land use violation notice to ICE, the Oregon Senate delaying the vote once again on Governor Tina Kotek's massive transportation package, and a bit of oral history on one of Portland's most storied music venues. Joining me on this week's Friday News Roundup are Oregonian courts reporter Zane Sparling and Portland Mercury arts and culture editor Suzette Smith. It's Friday, September 19th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Welcome, everyone, to the Friday News Roundup. Suzette, Zane, thank you for joining me this morning. Zane, I think this might have been I want to say 69 days since you were on last. Not sure if this was something you masterminded, but nice.
Isn't it 67 though? Isn't that like the cool Zoomer number is 67?
Oh, you mean
No.
6'7"?
Oh.
Did you make me say it out loud, Zane? God damn it. No, we're elder millennials. It's been 69 days. For those of you new to the show, today is the day we break down some of the biggest local stories of the week with some of the best and brightest journalists in town. But before we jump into the news, I usually ask our guests an opening question so our listeners can get to know them a little better. And today's opening question is related to Portland's city administrator, Michael Jordan, ordering a citywide hiring freeze due to the city's multi-million-dollar budget deficit. And it's set to begin October 1st. And in a staff-wide email, Jordan said it would not include police, fire, or 911 services. And he also asked bureaus to limit their discretionary overtime spending. The freeze is supposed to save us $6 million in general funds and about $20 million in other funding from its start through June 30th. So my question to you both is, what suggestions would you have for the city to either further cut costs or make some extra money? There are no bad ideas.
Mine is like half serious, but also I haven't really investigated it at all. I think we should tax vacant storefronts. I think there should be like a vacancy tax if you're vacant for a certain amount of time, because people aren't lowering the rents, which would make them easier to fill or to get a new business in there that maybe can't afford the rent right now. And I'm really looking forward to everybody telling me why that's a bad idea, so I don't have to look it up. Suzette at portlandmercury.com. Thank you very much.
Oh, there are so many developers that are so happy to tell you why that's a terrible idea. And I'll tell you why. We've had City Councilor Jamie Dunphy come on to talk about vacancy tax, exactly what you're talking about. He was looking into it and he was basically in research mode. And he came on to explain all the positives for it, but also just like, but am I crazy? People, write in, let us know. And that episode, I think, was just passed around like every land developer. And they were just like, this is the most biased thing. And I'm like, we talked to somebody, they gave us their opinion, But, and what was that email again that they could reach you at?
Suzette at portlandmercury.com. Let me have it.
I think it's a solid idea. Again, no bad ideas. Zane, what about you?
No bad ideas, Claudia. It's great to be back, seeing you again. Suzette, it's nice to meet you as well. As you guys know, I'm not a businessman. I'm not part of hustle culture. And if you do have any complaints, just send me an email at lucasmanfield@willametteweek.com. That's where you should reach me. But if you do have any concerns, I don't think you will, because this is a great idea. Think about it. City Hall gift shop. You walk into City Hall.
That's what I'm saying.
You go up to the city council, you deliver a 30-second window into your own personal brand of madness. Security is about to escort you out, except exit through the gift shop. You've got hats, you've got sweatshirts, you've got notebooks, pens, pencils, all of them licensed, branded with the City of Portland seal. Imagine rolling up with that kind of swag to your first day of class at PSU or to the farmer's market, a tote bag. I mean, the ideas are endless. And best of all, we could partner with local businesses, and the city could actually, get some local manufacturing to make these products. I think it's honestly money left on the table at this point.
What's funny is that my idea has always been merch. Like, I think the city, I agree with you, Zane. I stole your idea. No, you went first. I think the city of Portland is sleeping on merch. And again, I think half joking here. Like, I'm only half joking. I'm talking shirts, baseball caps, lawn signs, beer koozies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's get into it. And I like your idea of keeping it classy, like, the seal. But I think we should be leaning into stereotypes and make the merch speak to both sides of the aisle, so to speak. Like, I can see a proud Portlander wearing official City of Portland gear that says Portland, Oregon, America's liberal hellhole. And I can also see MAGA or any of our other haters also wearing the same shirt. And that's double the profits, baby.
Yeah,
like, let's use this to our advantage. People love hating Portland. Let's charge them for it. I went to Evergreen State College, and for the longest time, their most profitable merch was created by their biggest hater, which was this conservative-owned billboard in Lewis County, Washington. The bigot board, which is what we all affectionately called it, read Evergreen State College, home of environmental terrorists and homos. ? And that question was on coffee mugs, shirts, postcards, hoodies, you name it, all through the early aughts when I attended, and many of these things with the actual picture of the billboard. And had I not been so broke, I would have bought all that merch. So Just a heads up, I think it works.
Yeah, I would love a Portland City bong, honestly.
A Portland City bong?
I also think that we should have a ceremonial bong, just tangent for a moment, ceremonial bong that the mayor hits every morning. That's what I want,
Okay.
A beautiful one, complicated.
No comment.
Oh my God. Well, thank you both for your answers. On to the news of the week. So this week, I'm actually starting off things, which is kind of new. I'm looking into the city's actions surrounding the ICE facility in Southwest Portland. I relied on press releases by our mayor, some social media updates made by members of city council, and reporting by the mighty Taylor Griggs over at Portland Mercury, Suzette. A bit of history. Since 2011, the city of Portland has granted the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, ICE, a conditional use permit to operate out of its existing facility in Southwest Portland. Now, the condition being that they can't hold detainees for longer than 12 hours. And after a lot of pressure from the community and members in city council, an investigation was launched sometime in July by the city's permitting bureau, and they found that ICE violated their permitting conditions on 25 occasions between October 1st, 2024 and July 27, 2025. Now, Mayor Keith Wilson sent out a press release on Wednesday stating, "I am proud of our team for conducting a thorough, thoughtful investigation and referring the matter to the next steps in the land use violation process, approving the move and supporting what comes after, even urging Portlanders to stand in solidarity with Portland's immigrant community," which, was so sad to say out loud, but amazing to hear from a local leader, because you're just not really hearing that wording. You're hearing a lot of let's defend our turf, but not that's a human being. And so he got a lot of applause, basically, online from people from not Portland, which is rare, I'll be honest, for non-Portlanders to be like, hey, Portland, good job. I don't know. Have you guys been on social media?
Just a tad.
Yeah. And so, but there is concern that this move could further aggravate the Trump administration, causing more harm in the end. And there's also the question if the city can even legally take on the federal government. So the U.S. Constitution's supremacy clause essentially limits the ability of state and local lawmakers to make decisions that conflict with federal law. Taylor Griggs from Portland Mercury also reported that the demand to close Portland's ICE facility, and I haven't heard this point, has been controversial. Within some immigration attorney and advocate circles, they've warned that closing the South Waterfront facility would actually make it more difficult to help those who have been detained by ICE, because without access to a local holding facility, ICE agents could just take them out of state to other facilities. And so at that point, it's much more difficult for attorneys to not only locate detainees, but also advocate for their prompt release. Now, where we are with this violation notice is ICE has 30 days to correct the issue. After 60 days, Portland's permitting bureau can initiate a process to reconsider the land use approval. Their decision can be appealed to Portland City Council and potentially the state's Land Use Board of Appeals. In the meantime, though, ICE can continue to operate as they have been. But before I get into some more details, including how Counselor Angelita Murillo says she's working on ways to creatively get around the supremacy clause issue, what do you guys think?
Well, I want to know what Zane thinks, because you're always dealing with long legal battles that could just stretch into the future. Does that look to you like what's going to happen here?
Well, thank you, Ms. Smith. That's very courteous of you, your knowledge of my prolific writing career.
You're one of the few courts reporters in Portland.
You are one
true.
of the few courts reporters, Zane. Not to say that Suzette's knowledge of your career is not special, but I'm just saying you are one of two.
There's some other colleagues at the Oregonian, of course, and we
course.
share courts coverage, but certainly I'm not an expert on LUBA. You're very right, both of you, Suzette, Claudia, that this could be a prolonged multi-year process. I think actually one of the interesting critiques that Taylor Griggs mentioned in her article for the Mercury was that some immigration attorneys have said that, if this facility gets kicked out of Portland, one of the most likely options is that ICE would start immediately transporting people all the way to the Northwestern Detention Center. So, taking people up to, I believe it's Everett, Washington. So obviously that's a longer commute for attorneys who need to meet with people who've been detained.
Yeah, that's almost Canada at that point. Everett is so far up.
So it's clearly, and they could open a new facility or change their procedures. They could open something out in the suburbs. I don't know what ICE would do, and they won't have to do anything for a few years. I think the real context here is, what's going to happen with the nightly protests, right? Because we've seen so much, interest from both online audiences, from President Trump, calling out Portland. Suzette, I know you've been to the ICE protests on occasion. What might be the impact down there at South Waterfront?
Yeah, I know that you have a number of people there who are pretty serious about a continued protest of ICE, which is not necessarily, it's not attached to this particular instance. People have been down at that location protesting Immigration and Customs Enforcement for years, and I don't necessarily see this having that much impact other than, you'll have people thinking that it is supporting their movement. You'll have people thinking that it is a non-gesture. I think the thing that always really disturbs me about the protests at the ICE facility down in South Portland is that they use so many munitions. They've actually had to move a school that was next door to the ICE facility, actually had to move because of the poisoning of their ground.
Because they're blanketing that whole area with tear gas, basically. So that's also another thing on the table. And I don't know if you're saying this, but some of this concern isn't tied to ICE, immigration, and human rights. It's basically tied to can you get this tear gas out of my fucking eyes? Can you please leave my neighborhood? And they're talking about the protesters, and they're also talking about ICE,
Yeah, there's zero chill from the people who are staffing that facility when it comes to tear gassing the street.
Yeah.
We don't have certainly ICE's perspective on this. I don't know. It seems likely that they probably don't want to have a protest every night outside of their facility. So, I don't know if ICE is thinking, should we just go rent a warehouse in Wilsonville? That'd be interesting to see. I don't think they're going to necessarily want to show their hand at this time, but it'd be really interesting to know what ICE's perspective is and what they're planning, because this is, a legal procedure that will be dealt with by lawyers and won't have any immediate ramifications. There's nothing stopping the federal government from deciding to move their operations at any time or double down, right? And we've seen plenty of promises from Tom Homan and people like that who've been talking about increasing immigration enforcement here in Portland.
Yeah. So a couple of questions have come up. One being like, what can the city do? Because again, it's the federal government. So Councilor Angelita Murillo kind of floated this idea of like, hey, we're looking into ways that we can use city power, city law to discourage people from renting, like you said, Zane, like they just move somewhere else, renting any kind of other building in Portland to ICE. And so this is a quote. If you're a landlord and you're choosing to open a detention facility with a government contractor, then you're going to have to pay whatever it costs for the city to do that. Tear gas cleanup, the extra policing. No one should be profiting from human suffering. I'm hoping that this policy will be one piece to chip away at that. So there are these very strategic ways to go around that. It's going through the permitting office, but it's very like sticky, all the layers between the city and what they're able to do, right? So this reminds me of another controversial conditional land use type permit, which again, not permit, it's like more just land use compatibility statement, which is when the city of Portland allowed Zenith to operate out of Northwest Portland, right on the river, because why not? And legally, it's shaking out that the city can't really enforce any of the conditions that they laid out in their very conditional land use compatibility statement. So what I'm saying is like, they could write all these things down, but it's the federal government. And it's also like these larger corporations that are just like, you have no power. I don't know. I'm not saying that that's like what's going to happen, but I'm just saying like that is the uphill battle that our city councilors are trying to figure out. Like what will legally stick,
This seems like a pretty good example of the new city council being receptive to their constituents. Honestly, I think that if we had been looking at the previous city council, we would have seen a whole lot of like
nothing
and hawing and not talking about it. So, I don't know that they're going to be able to do anything, but it does show that they are listening to people.
Yeah. And I will say that 2 North Portland families have been ripped apart not too long ago. I actually heard about it in the gym, like a gym buddy of mine. His mom runs this music program in schools, and he just was like, yeah, it was Rosa Parks, and they smashed this dude's window, grabbed him through it in front of his kids. And it rippled through the system, like North Portland schools, that some kids at Roosevelt High went home early because they were so scared for their family. And so like, this is the terrorism, like this is the human suffering we're talking about. And these are people that like, they have established roots in the community, like they have families here, kids that were born here, they have jobs, they're dropping their kids off at school. It's just really, really sad. So when like we think about all this, like to me, it's like, that is what we should be focusing on, that like piece of what's happening.
Yeah, I think like it's absolutely terrifying to have masked people going through like abducting without explaining why, without giving them their rights, without just it's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, more headlines of the week. Traveling after Labor Day might be a cheat code because trails and beaches are less crowded and we're past all those scorching hot days. So if you're looking to explore a bit more of Oregon before the rains come, skip Airbnb and Vrbo and hit up Cascadia Getaways. They're locally owned and operated by Oregonians who love this state as much as you do. Plus, they're on average 5 to 15% cheaper than most of these larger vacation rental platforms. They've got stunning homes across Mount Hood, the coast, Central Oregon, and more. And if you're currently in the market for someone to manage your vacation property, Cascadia Getaways is always looking for local partners. Whether you choose to book with Cascadia Getaways or another property manager, remember just to book direct, book local, save money. It's a win-win. Visit CascadiaGetaways.com to book your next trip or connect with their team. That's CascadiaGetaways.com. Hey, all you wine drinkers out there, grape harvest is coming, and I know we're spoiled here in the Willamette Valley, but if you're looking to spread your wine tasting wings, I just made that up. Walla Walla Valley in Southeast Washington is home to more than 130 wineries offering great wines and new vineyard experiences. Like, I've actually been wanting to check out Abeja, which means bee in Spanish, by the way. Their grounds look beautiful, and 4-time James Beard Award nominee chef Mike Easton heads their kitchen. And there are so many other beautiful grounds to explore that are constantly putting on special events and prefix menus. Plus, Walla Walla has a walkable historic downtown core where you can enjoy more farm-fresh fine dining from other celebrated chefs. It's just a scenic 4-hour drive away, and many of these wineries have adorable accommodations on their estates. Head over to wallawalla.org for more info and to plan your visit today. That's wallawalla.org. Okay, Zane, you looked into the never-ending transpo tax hike situation. You want to give us the lay of the land of what's going on?
Well, never-ending story is probably the right word for what's been going on here in the Oregon Senate, right? The new plan is to vote on this $4 billion transportation package no earlier than September 29th. And before we get into maybe the politics of this, the reason for the delay is the health of Senator Chris Gorsuch, someone I've met a few times. And I don't know all the details of his medical condition, but I think hopefully everyone in Oregon, regardless of their opinions on ODOT or this policy, we can hope that Senator Gorsuch does, at least medically, he's on the right path, and we want him to recover.
Oh, so that's what's happening, is that we're working around someone's illness? Is that what you're saying?
That's
Or
my understanding.
partial? Okay, gotcha.
I think there's a much broader question here, which is, do Democrats and do Governor Tina Kotek have the political mojo to move this giant spending plan to the finish line, right? Because as people probably recall, your listeners, during the regular session earlier this year, this was the top priority to fund transportation. This is sort of it's been 10 years almost since the 2017 spending package for transpo. That was about $5 billion. A lot of promises were made at that time. Now it's 2025. Some of those big mega projects haven't budged. Some things have happened, but not everything that was discussed when we were funding things back in 2017. And now ODOT is saying it needs this money. The public transit agencies desperately want this money to keep their service levels intact. And it's a really huge goal for the Democrat politicians who run the state. And so the question is, will they get it to the finish line, right? Because they had to scale this package down tremendously, right? They made some of the tax increases only last for a year or two rather than being more indefinite. So it's a much more modest plan. They had several procedural issues getting this passed by the state house. Several politicians have, switched political parties or announced that they're not running for re-election in the wake of that very controversial vote in the House. And now in the Senate, the Democrats need all 18 votes from their members to get this passed because they don't have any Republican support. So you can imagine some of the more moderate Senate Democrats, like Senator Mark Meek, are facing intense lobbying efforts, people who are, especially in the more swing districts, right? If they're to see another defector emerge, at this point, it's not clear that there's any Republican that would vote with the Democrats to pass this package. And
yeah, because we have the super majority. Yeah,
we do, but we need the Democrats need every vote to do that. Mm-hmm. And so if they can accomplish it is still a really big open question. And I think the question I have for both of you is, if you've been following this, you know that the Republicans have been mounting a lot of criticism of this package. They've been saying plenty of things about ODOT and ODOT's spending habits. And I'm wondering, have the state GOP become the spandex mafia? Because typically opposition to ODOT comes from the cycling advocates, from public transit advocates, but instead it's Republicans. They're the ones who don't want to pass this plan that would give ODOT and transit agencies a lot of money.
It's just the horseshoe effect of policy when it comes to just splitting all of your views down political aisles. You end up coming right back to our side, baby. That's what happens. I have to say that, not to dodge your question, Zane, but I was looking at which Democrats were just like, hey, I don't think I'm going to vote for this. And because I was curious, what their reasoning was. And a lot of them were thinking about their rural constituents. A lot of them were thinking of the people in their community who would not benefit. They're like, most of this is not going to affect us. But the tax hikes and the fees that my constituents cannot afford will affect us. So it was like, I can totally see that rock and hard place that a lot of Democratic representatives are struggling with, because like they're there to represent their constituents. And if their constituents are saying, please don't let this pass, I can't afford another fee, another tax hike. And we're never going to see that road here. You know, I mean, like, it's kind of hard. I can totally see someone trying to do the best for their people. And that seems, to me, that's the point where I'm like, well, how are they going to convince them?
Yeah.
We're not going to convince the Republicans, but how are the Democrats going to convince their own party?
Suzette, you have the answer.
Suzette, you can answer both of our questions, I know.
I was more thinking, is this like the new government shutdown, but for Oregon? Is this,
this one vote?
Well, because we've been actually going back and forth for months now, right? And also, like, I feel like passing the transportation bill whenever we need to do it is always kind of a huge pain in the ass. It seems deeply cavernous. I don't understand like what the sticking issues are, other than they just, there are people who don't want to spend money, and there are people who think that we need to in order to support infrastructure.
I mean, some of the funding mechanisms that are included in this package, right, are more and higher registration fees for electric vehicle owners, right? Now, typically EV owners, especially if you're fully electric, you're not paying the gas tax, right? Because you're not going to the gas station. You're paying for electricity, but that's a different story. And so now it's going to be, you might be spending $400 a year to register your EV. There's a lot of probably liberal or Democratic voters who don't want to pay that extra fee, right? And of course, nobody likes potholes. Nobody likes being stuck in traffic. But when you look at the critiques that are coming from Republicans, they're saying that ODOT doesn't have an income, a revenue problem. They have a spending problem, right? They're saying that all of these mega projects, like the new interstate bridge, the Abernathy Bridge, the Rose Quarter project, all of these projects are very expensive. And we all know that government estimates tend to go up over time. And so there's a lot of skepticism from the Republicans who are claiming, why are we spending all this money when we can't fill the potholes or get the snowplows on the road in the winter? Of course, I think ODOT's defenders are saying that, one, if we don't pass this bill, we're going to have, hundreds of employees being laid off, and we're going to lose these critical features. It reminds me a little bit of that classic Dustin Hoffman movie from 1997, Wag the Dog. I'm sure you all remember it, right? Where you talk about it's the Washington Monument policy, right? When the government shuts down, the first thing they do is put up caution tape around the Washington Monument and tell all the tourists that it's closed and you can't look at it, even though it didn't go anywhere, right? It's a pillar. It didn't move, but that has an immediate impact, and it starts to push public opinion. And are we going to see something similar here with ODOT, potentially laying off and shutting down some of its very rural stations, its rural maintenance outposts?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, just to drive that, like, this actually does affect you. And I was thinking that too, because I mean, last year, basically they were saying, hey, we're not going to be able to do winter service. And that really affects rural Oregonians.
And if the Democrats pass this transportation package and Governor Kotek signs it, I don't think in a few years we're going to remember this little bit of drama with the delays at the end of the day. But if Democrats can't get this to the finish line, not only may we see some immediate ramifications in road services, we certainly see huge cuts to transit agencies across the state, but we're also going to just have a really nagging question about these mega projects, which is, can Oregon build anything beyond just a sidewalk anymore? It's going to be really tough to do that, especially if they don't want to do, right? Nobody wants the tolls. So if Oregon can't implement tolling and Oregon can't get those billion-dollar federal grants, which Trump could easily cancel or, at least try to keep them stuck for a few more years, it's going to be a huge open question whether we can get these mega projects done.
Yeah. The old fix everything, but don't charge me.
Well, it sounds like you folks have figured it out, and I'm really proud of you.
Are you talking to Zane and Claudia, or are you talking to Oregon?
I'm talking to you two. When they listen to the podcast, they're going to be like, yeah.
All the rural Oregonians that listen to CityCast,
and they're going to pass it. Yeah. It's going to be great.
So they're voting again at the end of this month. So I guess we'll find out then how it all shakes out.
September 29.
Ooh, mark it down.
If they don't approve it, we could be talking about it more.
I hope we talk about this forever. Well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, more headlines of the week. As some longtime listeners might know, I can't do dairy. I would love to, but my body does not allow it. And it's been so hard finding protein supplements or quick pre- and post-workout fuel on busy days because almost everything that's out there is either whey or milk protein dependent. Fortunately, Huel's Black Edition powder is 100% vegan, and it can either be used as the perfect post-workout recovery meal or as a quick meal if you just don't have time to cook. Huel, spelled Huel, is packed with 40 grams of plant-based protein and 27 essential vitamins and minerals. Plus, there's no added sugar and it's gluten-free. But most importantly, at least to me, is that it actually tastes good. It comes in flavors like salted caramel, chocolate, and cinnamon roll. And Huel just dropped a new product called the Daily Greens Ready to Drink. It's a sparkling beverage that comes in delicious flavors like blueberry, apple, and peach. It's made by dietitians, so it's also jam-packed with nutrients and fiber. You can try Huel for yourself with 15% off for new customers using code Portland at Huel.com/Portland. That's HUEL.com/Portland. Fuel your best performance with Huel today. Okay, I have the next 60 seconds to convince you to go check out Doer Jeans. You can time me. Are we ready? Okay, go. Doer makes stylish, bike-friendly clothes that are designed to keep you cool, comfortable, and looking good. They're pioneers of blending technical innovation with everyday clothing without it looking like boring athletic wear. Like, even if these clothes weren't made with Coolmax, which is supposed to regulate your body temp and wick moisture, you would want to wear them. They gave me a pair of jeans to try out, and y'all, they look good. And they're not harnessing the full power of the sun and directing it straight to my legs like most other jeans do when it's sunny and above 70 degrees. And CityCast Portland listeners get 15% off their first order. You can either just mention the code CCPDX for your first in-store purchase or go online at shopdoer.com/CCPDX. That's shopduer.com/CCPDX. Time. What was that? 58 seconds? So, Suzette, you're going to actually give us a very interesting segment for a Friday Roundup because usually we stick to headlines, but you have actually a bit of history to explain, a bit of lore to unravel.
Yeah, this is from our new fall arts guide that the Mercury just put out, where we had a writer, Melissa Locker, who wrote about Satyricon. She wrote an oral history, which certainly, like, folks have written about Satyricon. It was a dive venue in Old Town that operated from 1984, and although it closed from 2003 to 2006, it opened back up again and was running in 2010, and then it shut down again. And it was funny because when it shut down to make room for like affordable housing. So what could we do? But it was like when it was operating, it was emblematic of Portland's like scrappy punk music scene. Courtney Love and like Kurt Cobain allegedly made out on the dance floor. Mm-hmm. There were just so many bands that came through there. And I think that Melissa Locker came across this because she was working on a different oral history project about Oasis. She like just put a book out about Oasis told from the perspective of the fans. And while she was doing that, she came across Oasis had played there at Satyricon. So
Oasis?
She was able to talk to people. Yeah.
I mean, that is just not the band I would assume. I'm like, sure, the Wipers I know played. Like you said, pretty much the entire grunge scene passed through. New Shoes played. And I was like, okay, I can see that. New Shoes, sure.
Yeah.
Oasis
played there because Portland was between California and Seattle. It's just like a place to play. So they were always packing bands in there that you just like wouldn't expect. Also, I think Oasis played there when they had not perhaps yet blown up.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
It's a nostalgia piece, but also I think it's so important to include that sort of stuff in arts guides because if we're not looking back on things, people always say Old Town is super rough. However, the piece starts with Michaela Watkins, her first shift at Satyricon, the manager gives her a tour and he says, okay, here's the taps, here's the keg, and here's the bat. And she's like, the bat? And he's like, yeah, the bat. And she's like, am I going to use the bat? And he's like, you might need to use a bat. It's just, it was a rough neighborhood. It's always been kind of the place that had cheaper housing where your scrappier people would hang out. But it also, like, when people remember it, the different people Melissa talked to, they remembered a place where you would have really well-known bands playing, you would have locals playing. It was just like a place that was extremely dirty and extremely equitable.
Dirty and equitable.
Or well, equal, I guess. Like,
okay.
There was a level where everybody was using the same terrible bathroom.
Yeah, I hear that. Zane, did you hear about Satyricon? Like, was this part of your world knowledge?
Yeah, so I did read this article, and it was a great piece in the Mercury's culture guide, which I believe is on newsstands now. If you'd like to pick up a copy, I was not cool in the 2010s era, so there's a lot of like famous quote unquote old Portland lore. I know that real old Portland was much older than old Portland, but like I didn't go to Satyricon. I never went to Backspace. Like I don't have those memories. I think I went to the No on Alberta before that got torn down and turned into an apartment building. That's like
Love
the
the
best cool Portland story I have at this point. It is really interesting to see like how the city has evolved. And I mean, we still have Dante's right on Burnside. So certainly there are still some gritty clubs in Portland. We still got the Yammy, I believe it's called, Yam Hill Pub, right downtown. It doesn't do shows though I've heard their karaoke gets pretty raucous.
Do they have karaoke at Yamhill?
Some say. Alleged.
Claudia, did Explode Into Clovers ever play there?
You're asking if my band has it. You know what's so funny is that I had to rack my brain, and I was just like, I think we did, but I don't remember. I know I've been to Satyricon a handful of times, but the last memory I can remember, like vividly, was seeing Old Time Religion. Do you remember that band from Olympia?
Yeah.
They played, and I remember seeing them there. And that was the last time I remember physically being in that space, because I have like a vague memory of being on the stage, but it could have also been so many other stages.
Well, people really liked your band a lot. I know you played a lot, so I liked your band.
Oh, thanks, Suzette.
Yeah, I mean, even though I was pretty new to Portland in 2010, I know I went to Satyricon because I saw Wolf Eyes there.
Oh my God, nice.
Yeah, I just remember thinking like, wow, it was a very stripped back venue when I went there. Like there was barely furniture, which is in keeping with a vibe. And when you look at the old photos in this piece, you'll see like, I don't know that much changed. Honestly, I think when I went there, I thought, wow, this is like a pretty empty venue with like one chair and one table. And I think it might have always been.
Yeah.
I guess the reason that I brought this up for this show was that what I've loved about this Satyricon piece is that we've gotten a good amount of feedback so far. Just in my inbox has been slightly plentiful with people saying you covered the wrong era of Satyricon, or you didn't talk about the bands that I like in Satyricon. And although I know that can be like maybe annoying, I actually love that because I think that means that they're interacting with the piece, they're remembering, they're thinking about stuff. I've actually kind of gotten to a place now with writing about culture where if I can get a response, even if it's angry, that is like, no, but this is what you should know about, I still think that's kind of valuable information. It's kind of fascinating when you talk about stuff like this and people say, oh, you didn't get this thing. And you're like, well, thank you for like highlighting that.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see even more heat about this piece, particularly. Let me have it.
And that is at Lucas Manfield at willametweek.com.
That's me. If anything I said, I'm that scurvy dog, Lucas Manfield. What will I do next?
Well, you guys, I really appreciate you digging into these headlines with me. As you were talking, Suzette, I was looking at the pictures and I was like looking into this oral history of Satyricon, which, yeah, I basically get kind of like tripped out a little bit just thinking about like all the shows and all the bands that's gone through there. It's kind of amazing. Well, before we head out, I wanted to give some shout outs. I don't know if you guys know this, but we have a membership program, CityCast Portland Neighbors, and one of the cool perks is that people basically write in and say, hey, give this place a shout out, give this person a shout out, give this organization a shout out. So Terry R is shouting out Ms. Paloma Clothing Store. They write, wonderful variety of clothing, jewelry, and scarves, a wonderful sales rack of delightful items year-round, fabulous staff. James JB, The Keys Lounge, great vibe, staff, and a fantastic happy hour. Can you guys attest to The Keys Lounge? Have you been there?
I actually tried to get a key made there before it was The Keys Lounge. For a long time, it was just like, it was because that sign is like really old, and I went there to be like, could I get a key made? And it was just always closed. So like, I sort of feel like the Keys Lounge is a great use of that building because you could never get a key made there before and you still can't, but now there's space.
You should try it. You should go back in again and go, hey, now that you're open, can I get this key made?
It would be cool. Like, H Mart has like the machine in the corner where you can get a key made. Just get it. Just add it.
Totally. All right. Riley G wants to shout out Johnson Creek Watershed Council. Great cleanup coordination work. JC crosses many jurisdictions, so they stay busy and effective. And I personally want to shout out some new members, Michael H., Amy W., Thomas R.M., and Sam W. When you join as a Portland neighbor, we'd also be happy to read your shout out and places you love in Portland, alongside a bunch of other perks like ad-free listening and member-only events. You can join at membership.citycast.fm. You guys, I appreciate you spending your Thursday morning with me. This is when we tape. I know it's kind of early for y'all. You're always welcome back. That is my promise to you.
Yeah, I'm always excited to hear what Portland's talking about.
It's great to hear all those new members supporting local journalism, Claudia. And yeah, can't wait to get my punch card all the way to the 10th ticket, and then I'll get a free show, right? All about me.
Oh, yeah, you won't have to pay to be on, like everybody does.
Like we all pay. We all do it.
Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. Bye, Suzette.
Bye.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. Our podcast production team this week was John Atariani, Julia Fiaioni, Lizzie Goldsmith, and myself. Our Hey Portland newsletter editor is Rachel Monahan, and our host is me, Claudia Meza. Original music by Jenny Conley and Stephen Drizos. Additional music by All the Kimonos, as well as Sarah the Instrumentalist, Timothy Infinite, and Gregory David, courtesy of Epidemic Sound. We'll be back Monday morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.